Okay, for you guys today, I have 6 short masterpieces. Now, I did this previously, but here are 6 more that I really just love, and I really want you to pick up. And they're great books. They're very short, so why not read them? The first thing we have is the Tao Te Ching, and the Tao Te Ching is something that is extremely fascinating, but also very short. And it's a book that pretty much every line has been debated about what it meant for thousands of years at this point, and it's something that is so unique, so weird, so unlike anything else that you might as well pick it up. It's full of paradoxes that kind of reveal the true nature of things, reveal the true nature of the world, and how we must think about it, how we must approach it. It basically summarized is the idea that when you are wearing a shoe that fits, it doesn't feel like a shoe. It kind of just is an extension of your foot, and that's really how the rest of your life should be. That's really how the rest of your life should be lived. And when you can live in that manner, then you can live in complete accordance with what is called the Tao, which is basically the way of things, the order of things, the way things are meant to be. And any sort of resistance, any sort of reluctance, any sort of hesitation should be something to be avoided. And to me, it's something that I feel like I could keep going back to, I keep talking about, I keep referencing. One of my favorite lines is, "Those who go to seek are further. Those who go out to seek have already missed the point. Those who go out to seek will never find it, because basically what they were looking for they already have." And what it really comes down to is basically Emersonian philosophy and sorts of things like that, which I really love to study. The next thing we have is Man's Search for Meaning. I think this is the longest thing on the list, actually. Yeah, it definitely is, looking just now, but I think it's only around 110 pages, something like that. Still fairly short. The beginning is really the part that is the most interesting, because it's really about Viktor Frankl's experience in the camps during World War II, we'll say. It's ridiculous, I can't talk about history, but anyway, in Man's Search for Meaning, it talks about the idea that man is what he can endure, and that at a certain point, the people that were surviving and the people that weren't were the people who clung on to hope, were the people that in some way found a light at the end of the tunnel, in some way clung on to some reason to live. And you really hear this harrowing experience of this guy basically being on death's door, understanding that if he stopped working well, that things would just end for him, and he was able to appreciate the little things. He was able to appreciate when he was allowed to sleep in 15 extra minutes, when he was allowed to, warm his hands by the fire after working in the cold for hours upon hours upon hours. And it really teaches you that no matter what, there's always something to cling on to. There's always some hope, and without hope, there's no point to live. The next thing we have is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Tremendous book. Very, very short. I want to say it's 94 pages. Yeah, 94 pages. And in those 94 pages, there is a whole lot packed into it. Essentially, what it talks about is the darkness in everyone, the darkness and the mask that we try to hide behind. I don't want to spoil it. I don't really want to talk about it, but I can talk a little bit about the themes and maybe give you an overview. I think there's pretty much a synonymous idea with two-faced people being Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So I'm not spoiling any of that, but I'm not going to go into the exact mechanics, the exact reason why they're two different people. But essentially what I want you to understand is it's a story exploring the nature that is in all of us to lie, to steal, to cheat, to harm others, and when you listen to that nature, where it leads. And I think it's an extremely compelling tale. Freud said something along the lines of, every great author understood the idea of the unconscious well before I coined it, and this is just one such example of a writer, of an author, of a poet understanding the darkness inside of all of us and the tendency to succumb to that darkness at times. The next thing we have is The Undiscovered Self by Jung. And this is an extremely short work, especially for Jung. It's not something that is 500, 600 pages, which is a nice, refreshing read. Essentially what The Undiscovered Self talks about is that we all wear a mask to be part of society. We all put on a facade to be liked, to be part of the crowd, to seek safety in numbers, but at a cost. It comes at the cost of our authenticity. And when someone's not being authentic, eventually these forces are going to build. Eventually these emotions, these energies, these things that we're pushing down are going to boil to the surface and come out in ways that we don't want it to come out. And it's extremely interesting because it talks about the idea of the state replacing religion, the idea of people putting the same energy that they would into religion, into politics, into different governments, into different political structures. Think about people that are like, well, if we just lived in a communist state, things would be perfect. If we just lived in a socialist state, things would be perfect. Oh, if we had complete free market capitalism, everything would be perfect. I hate to tell you this, but nothing will ever be perfect, and it's this like fanaticism that still exists that is really the responsibility of a lot of the issues that are going on. But again, anyway, we won't get too deep into that, but very good book by Jung, and it's a very good introduction to his ideas and a very broad overview of a lot of things that he has to say. And it's interesting because this book is more of a commentary on society than a psychological work like most of his stuff, but it definitely has some gems in it. Next thing we have is Notes from the Underground. This was something that I was going to include on the last list, but I replaced it with White Nights instead because I just thought it fit the list better. I thought it was a more complete story. This is something that's really, really out there. It really is. Notes from the Underground reads like pure schizophrenic rambling, but essentially what it's meant to do is stir you away from nihilism, is stir you away from the need to exact your will on other people and foster a sense of community. And Dostoevsky was not really somebody that ever wrote any specific philosophy, but we get the closest thing to that in the first 40 pages of Notes from the Underground. Essentially, it's a journal from this guy named the Underground Man and his chaotic ramblings about the workings of the world. And in certain regards, he's brilliant. In certain regards, he is able to perceive a much deeper and much more inauthentic layer of society, but at the same time he's also a wicked person, so it's like, how much does this mean? And I think it's extremely fascinating because basically what he's writing is a character that wants to destroy the norms and not replace it with anything, destroy everything about the world, but instead of build something new, instead of have something better, it's replaced with nothingness. And what does that mean? The implications. The story is also hilarious. There's a part where he purposely gets drunk to piss everybody off, and I feel like we've all been there at some point. We've all been there, like, you know what? I'm just gonna lose my filter. We're just gonna do it. But anyway, on to the last thing. The last thing is Anthem by Ayn Rand, and Ayn Rand is somebody that I find fascinating. I think some of her ideas are not quite all there. I like a lot of them, but some of them, like, I don't necessarily agree with that. And, it might just come down to semantic differences. It might just come down to certain ways I see things, certain experiences I've had. But, again, I think she's certainly brilliant, and I think she can write a very good story. Because Anthem's unique because it's a collectivist versus individualist society, and that's really the theme of it. And collectivism is the idea that you must put the individual last and put society first, and that's going to benefit everybody. But in truth, it leads to the decay of the individual, and if the individual is nothing but a cog in the wheel, then they cannot produce anything except robotic means. And that's essentially what this book gets into. Basically, the society is one where people have forgot the word I, people have forgot how to say I, they don't know what it means. So everything is a collective possession of everyone else. And the narrator the entire time says, we did this. And at several points I'm like, who is this we? And it got me a few times, and I was like, oh wait, it's not a world where people understand that there's a difference between me and you. But interesting enough, it has a very Prometheus-like myth at the end of it, and I think it's definitely something to ponder. It reminisces of Plato's cave allegory and the idea of explaining something that you understand to a world that is not willing to see it yet, and the implications of individuals on a society. I think it's a really, really well-written book, and it's definitely something to check out, especially as people are becoming more and more homogenized. If you're speaking out from the crowd, then you're ostracized. It's never been more difficult to be an individual in this world. Yeah, those are 6 short masterpieces. Hopefully I gave you guys some more interesting things to read, and there was much more of a focus on nonfiction on this book, or on this book series. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I could do more short stories. I could do more nonfiction. I've read a lot of things at this point, so I can certainly suggest more stuff that fits that category. So let me know if you want me to keep this series going. I think this is extremely fun. I think it's best of both worlds because I think it puts you guys onto books that are tremendous, but it's also non-terrifying for people that haven't read that much and they're like, you know what, a 90-page book written by a great author, a famous author that summarized a lot of their ideas, I could do that. So that's really the reason why I wrote this, or not why I wrote this, why I made this video. I don't do scripts, but basically that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. I love you guys so much. See you in the next one.